think additional that you wanted to add? I did want to kind of bring up the ghost actions thing. I saw that you made some points in the air that it could be, like that there's similarities uh, in the two. Is there anything else that you would like to kind of bring up, or anything that you think I've forgotten?
You mean related to ghost action?
Just
Or
anything really. Just anything. Just
no,
anything else that you want to add.
I think it's quite complete already.
Yep.
I just had a few points for your first question, like related to the number of leaked secrets,
Mm-hmm.
because your question focused on the Shai-Hulud repositories, but we also found a lot of secrets in the workflow logs, like the malicious workflow logs,
Oh.
which is an interesting point that I feel some people have missed in recent days. Like there was a lot of focus on this webhook that was supposed to collect all the secrets, and that was rate limited. But
Yeah.
something a few people mentioned is like there was like a debug feature dumping the secrets in the logs of the workflow, and this is publicly available, which is pretty interesting because it was like a second way of leaking the secrets, and this one is public, so the secrets can also be enumerated.
Yeah, there's so many things, and I wonder if that webhook.site thing, like, I almost wonder if that was a false flag, because when we started looking into it, it was the first thing that we saw, and it was what we spent 45 minutes looking into, just this webhook thing, and not looking into it, like not looking into what it's actually doing. So it's really interesting. There's so many different things on here.
It's definitely weird how they used this webhook thing, because it proved inefficient, and it also provides a very easy to find and very unique indicator of compromise. So yeah, it's strange, and it somehow relates to the ghost action attack, where we observe those very like dumb attack methods, like using like for ghost action it was like a single IP address with a stupid host name put on it, like kind of an auto-generated host name, and across wave the attacker used the same IP address, just slightly changed the host name, and all in all it looked very poor, like in terms of OPSEC, and very unprofessional, if you can say it, about threat actors. And here it somehow relates to this, like using a webhook, like a public webhook, like this, like just doesn't make sense. They could have registered.
You seem to have like very eloquent, very professional, sophisticated malware combined with really amateur mistakes.
Absolutely.
It's very bizarre. Yeah. All right. So we'll get into it. So Gaetan, I'm going to do a longer introduction, kind of outside of this. So I don't like to bore people with my long, but I'll introduce you, yada yada yada. And then the first thing I'm just going to say is, like, welcome to the show. So we'll start there, and then we'll go from it. But there'll be a bunch of stuff that I'll do kind of outside of this to introduce you and tell you who you are. But if you're ready, I think we can just go ahead and get started.
Yep, sure.
Perfect. So Gaetan, thanks so much for joining me here today, and welcome to the show.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to bring you on because, one, you had done some further analysis into this, which is really interesting. But another reason is that GitGuardian kind of famously collects information from GitHub. It has kind of a complete record of everything that's happening, including what has been deleted. So you have access to more intelligence information than most. So let's get started. Obviously, you've been looking for secrets. Obviously, that is kind of the main point of this attack, is to access secrets, to leak secrets. So, let's start with the the Shai-Hulud repositories, how many secrets did you guys kind of find in there, and what other methods of leaking secrets did you discover?
Yep. So just as a quick reminder about the attack, so the Shai-Hulud campaign tried to leak secrets by two main ways, through the public Shai-Hulud repositories that you just mentioned, and through the use of malicious GitHub Action workflow that were pushed to legit repositories. The Shai-Hulud repositories, we found about 50 of them in total that were pushed to GitHub between September 15 around 4 a.m. Up until September 17 at 9 a.m. Since then, we haven't seen any new repository of that kind pushed to GitHub. And in total, we found about 160 secrets in those repositories. And so the other way of leaking secrets was through this malicious workflow that was basically collecting the secrets available in the CI/CD process configured in GitHub, and pushing them to the now well-known public webhook, but also dumping them in the workflow logs, which allows for public access and enumeration. And on that side, we found about 220 repositories that received the malicious workflow log, and across all those repositories we found 190 secrets, more or less, where the workflow actually ran.
And it's really interesting because there seems to be a whole bunch of redundancy in this attack in terms of they were doing things in multiple different ways. That they weren't just kind of going down one path. But do you have an indication of kind of what the types of secrets that were being leaked were? Is it kind of what was described previously as like the usual suspects of secrets? It's GitHub tokens, cloud keys, or was there something like specific that the attackers were kind of after or chasing in this case?
Like in that specific case, it's very interesting because we have a complete view of what the attacker was doing. So we know exactly what the attacker was looking for on the compromised local machines, which were mainly cloud-related secrets, like, as you said, the usual suspects. GitHub token, NPM tokens, PyPy tokens, that kind of things that can somehow fuel the supply chain attack in that case. So there was this, plus the attacker somehow also collected more or less whatever he could find in terms of secrets by using an open source secret scanning engine and just scanning the local compromised machine. So they were definitely after cloud-related secrets, but also like taking whatever they could, and probably they will later on sort all those secrets and try to access more things than just GitHub and NPM. For the CI/CD secrets, it's slightly different. They had access to all the secrets, so they basically collected all the secrets available in the CI/CD pipelines. It's probably less easy on the attacker side to automate the exploitation of those secrets. But like I said, they'll probably just collect them and try to reuse them as soon as they will be able to just like do it. So it's like really two ways of capturing secrets: a very specific way, like hunting for cloud secrets, and something like more opportunistic, like collecting what is there and probably will sort them later.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. The other part of this attack, which I found really interesting, was that not only was it creating these public repositories and dumping secrets into them, it was also turning previously private repositories public. So I wanted to kind of maybe discuss this with you. How many of these previously private repositories were flipped public in this attack? And then I'm going to ask a follow-up question of why is this concerning? But let's start. How many did you kind of find in this case?
Until now, we have found 850 repositories, more or less. The last one having been pushed public yesterday, so on the September 16, at 5 p.m., something like this. So that's quite a big number of repositories, and by the nature of the attack, like it's a worm-like attack, so it can somehow restart all alone at any point in time. So we'll probably see more repositories leaked in the few days or weeks, even months.
And with these kind of like repositories being turned public, like why is this a risk? Is this just a risk from proprietary code being leaked? Is there a risk of business logic being exposed? Like what is the actual risk for businesses of having a private repository flipped public without them being aware of it, without them knowing or planning for it?
There are multiple risks. Of course, there's this intellectual property risks that you just mentioned, like seeing your code exposed can expose your business, or whatever software intellectual property you have in those repositories. So that's one point. Another point linked to leaking source code is that once the source code is public and most importantly known to a threat actor in this case, this code can also be used to hunt for software vulnerabilities that could then be used in other attacks. So it's somehow fueling the threat actor activity somehow. So those are two aspects of leaking source codes, and another problem with leaking private repositories is that in a lot of cases when you leak private repository you leak a lot of secrets, because that's a pattern we observe on a regular basis here at Git Guardian. Private repositories contain far more secrets than public repositories because simply people feel safe in their private repositories. There's this wrong feeling that whatever is private is safe, and so people tend to hardcode secrets in private repositories more than what they could do in public repositories. And so when those repositories are turned public, then all the secrets that are contained in those repositories become basically leaked, which increases again the magnitude of the attack.
There also seems to be some kind of like almost Robin Hood-like motivation behind this. I want to be careful here because I don't want to make out that this attacker is somehow benevolent because they're not. They're causing a lot of damage. But this idea of kind of making everything public, it feels like there's some weird motivation behind it. We've talked like at previous attacks about why they're doing this work in such a public way, because it not only puts it out there in the world, but it also makes it easier to kind of detect and know what's happening. Do you have any thoughts behind motivation? Keep in mind that I'm aware that this is probably entirely speculative at this point, but do you have any indication of why an attacker might do and work in this way?
Yep. As you said, it's pretty hard to know what are the motivations of a group of attacker, especially in like the early days of their activity, because we don't yet have any information about what this group is, what they are working for, or for whom they are working. So yeah, that's pretty speculative, but we can imagine multiple scenarios. Sometimes attackers are just doing what they do for their own like reputation, kind of. So making things public can be like just for this, like exposing people, kind of a name and shame fashion, just to like make the big news and have your name everywhere, even if you're not named personally, which can be a motivation. In that case, I think the attack is too evolved and too complex for just this. But another aspect of leaking things publicly on GitHub is that from an operational point of view, it's very efficient. When you are an attacker and you leak things on GitHub, to retrieve the loot from your attack, you just have to monitor GitHub and recover what you wanted to recover, which is very reliable because GitHub is GitHub, and GitHub has very few chances of being filtered in corporate environment, for example. So it's an easy target. You are pretty much sure that the laptop you just compromise can access GitHub, and so you can push things on GitHub, and then you can recover them. It's something we are seeing more and more in all types of attacks. People, attackers, using cloud public resources for diverse purposes, like command and control servers and etc. that we see developed over Google Drives or things like this. I think it can be an explanation here.
One other thing that I really want to kind of touch on here is this attack seems to bring together ideas and concepts from multiple different attacks. So we're very confident that this is the same attack as from the NX breach that created the Singularity kind of attack. Very similar, creating public repositories, etc. But there was also another attack that Guardian actually found, discovered, and reported upon. It's one that you coined Ghost Action, where there was a malicious GitHub action that was stealing credentials. It feels like this is almost a combination of NX and Ghost Action together. Do you think that this could be the same attackers? Do you see the same kind of concepts between the two? And maybe give a brief explanation into Ghost Action for those that kind of haven't heard of that before.
Yep, so Ghost Action was an attack that happened 2 weeks ago or something like this, that used the same kind of malicious GitHub Action workflow attack payload to exfiltrate secrets from the CI/CD. From that perspective, it's actually very similar to what we see in the Shai-Hulud campaign. It's like pretty much exactly the same payload, just slightly more efficient in the later campaign. So they actually are very similar, in such a way that we could imagine that Ghost Action was just like kind of a prelude or testing campaign before Shai-Hulud. Of course, it's only speculative because, as I said, we don't have any information about the group of attackers behind those two attacks yet. But it could be coincidental, but it could also be the same group of attackers. I really think there are somehow two options here. Either we are seeing the same group of attackers just reusing techniques and making their own tools and process evolve to make them more and more efficient by, for example, adding the worm-like payload in the Shai-Hulud campaign, or we are seeing like the whole threat landscape just learning from each other's and making the whole threat community more and more efficient and reusing techniques from previous campaigns. Because as you said, this Shai-Hulud campaign looks very similar to the Singularity campaign in that they published private repositories publicly and used NPM-based malware as an initial access vector. And we also see elements from Ghost Action, and we also see some elements from the TJ Action compromise earlier this year that add this idea of dumping secrets in the CI/CD logs for later recovery. So it's really like a mix of new tools and methods that have been used by the threat actors only this year and never before.
Yeah. And I guess kind of part of that is that every time you do one of these attacks, like your malware becomes very public. On so many blogs, there's a complete breakdown of everything that malware does. So, it's not a stretch to say that like to take it, to add it to your own campaign or to create a new campaign and improve upon it. That's certainly like well within the bounds of possibilities for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you one question here. I'm conscious of your time, but a lot of this involves secrets. When we look at this campaign, researcher Charlie Erickson, who's come onto the show too, has explained that in the initial packages that were compromised here, they all had the dependency of NX, which to me clearly indicates that this campaign almost started because their GitHub credentials or npm credentials were stolen from the NX breach. By that, I'm meaning it's clear people didn't rotate their secrets from that. At least that's my speculation here. So I want to ask you, with a little bit of purpose behind this question, if you have been a victim of this, if you've noticed the Shai-Hulud repo being created, if you've been using any of these projects as dependencies, what would you recommend their action be in this case?
I think the answer is in the question. The number one thing you should do is definitely to revoke the credentials that have been leaked by the campaign. So luckily we have all the secrets publicly, so you can all alone list the secrets and start revoking them one by one. And this is a must do. You just can't do otherwise. You absolutely need to revoke the secrets. You can't just turn the repositories private, delete the commits or whatever things we observe frequently, because in that case there isn't even a chance that no one saw, because it was on purpose and the attacker has access to your secrets. So you need to rotate them. Luckily, what we've found so far is that people with Shai-Hulud have revoked their secrets pretty fast. And when we actually collected all the secrets and tested them, only 40 of them were still valid. It's already something. I mean, 40 secrets can start a new campaign. As you said, it's the only thing you need to just start compromising new packages and start a new supply chain attack. But still, I feel we've managed, as speaking about the security industry, but we've managed to make enough noise that people noticed the campaign, got aware of it, and really tried to see if they were impacted and started rotated their secrets. And I feel like, in general, even if you count the number of actually compromised people, there are not so many of them. Only tens of people got compromised here, which isn't a lot if you compare to the number of downloads of the let's say TinyColor package, which indicate like we've managed to answer this fast enough that we somehow thwarted the attack to some extent. Of course, there's always this worm that will keep on being active for weeks or even months, but I think we've done a good job, all of us.
Yeah. Definitely, and it's nice to see the community come together in these instances, although they are stressful, and and you don't. I'll be happy if we have at least a couple of weeks before we get another one, but let's see how we do.
Recent weeks have been rich in supply chain attacks.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Gaetan, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for sharing your insights and expertise. Thank you for everyone at the Git Guardian team for continuing to do this research and going deep in it. You're one of the few companies that can do such post-mortem on these attacks, so the community appreciates it. And I'm sure that we will have you back on the show, because in probably another couple of weeks we'll be talking about version 3 of this attack and what's going on. Well, hopefully not, but I suspect it's probably going to happen. But
yep. thanks a lot. We'll continue doing our best to monitor this and try to alert and respond to those campaigns.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.